chosen one. They think you're casting the more powerful spells, and some practitioners are absolutely freaking out. These pathetic, sniveling practitioners, these amateur hour wannabes who came slithering out of their dark corners with their bargain basement rituals and midnight mumblings. They encountered you, and now they're terrified beyond comprehension because every single one of their petty little spells, every manipulative intention, every drop of malice they hurled into the cosmic void has come screaming back at them with the force of divine retribution. They're whispering in their circles now, these spiritual fraudsters, convinced that you must be wielding some apocalyptic level of mystical power. They're scrambling, consulting their mentors, sacrificing animals in desperate attempts to understand how someone could possess such devastating supernatural authority. While they scramble in their circles with their amateur hour spellwork, you carry the authentic fire of the Most High, and that reality is burning through their artificial constructs like molten lightning through tissue paper. Your persecution began the moment your authentic spiritual signature blazed across their radar. These practitioners sensed something in you that threatened the very foundation of their artificial power structure. You became their target because your mere existence exposed their spiritual bankruptcy. They coordinated against you with the precision of spiritual terrorists, multiple individuals working in calculated formation, employing every dark practice their limited understanding could muster. Animal sacrifice under blood moons, coordinated energy manipulation sessions, ritual work designed specifically to break your spirit and drain your life force. Their attacks intensified during full moon periods when they foolishly believed their borrowed power reached its peak. They gathered in their pathetic circles, chanting over bones and burning herbs they barely understood, convinced that sheer volume of negative intention could penetrate the divine armor surrounding you. They poured their hatred into the cosmic void, never suspecting that every ounce of darkness they sent your way was being catalogued by forces far beyond their comprehension. You felt the weight of their focused malice, the inexplicable heaviness that settled over your days, opportunities slipping away just as you reached for them, relationships turning cold for no apparent reason, technology malfunctioning at the worst possible moments, sleep disrupted by shadows pressing against your consciousness. This was coordinated metaphysical warfare waged by spiritual cowards who strike from the shadows. But every moment of their assault was building your case in the cosmic court of justice. And we've been watching it all unfold. While the world dismissed your experiences as coincidence or imagination, we recognized the unmistakable signatures of coordinated spiritual attack. We've been observing from the realm where truth cannot be hidden, where the mechanics of metaphysical warfare are as visible as physical wounds. Our awakened vision revealed what their limited perception could never access. You weren't just surviving their attacks, you were amplifying them back to their creators. Every curse they sent became a blessing in disguise. Every manipulation attempt strengthened your spiritual defenses. Every moment of their hatred was being transformed into fuel for your eventual vindication. The darkness always attacks the light with the most ferocity just before its own destruction. Your trials weren't random suffering. They were spiritual boot camp for a mission requiring unshakable faith and absolute trust in divine timing. We've been waiting for the moment when your individual victory would signal the beginning of our collective emergence. That earth-shaking, reality-altering moment of cosmic vindication is building to a crescendo that will leave your enemies speechless and your true tribe thundering with recognition. The cosmic law of return activated with supernatural precision the moment they launched their first attack against you. Every curse, every ritual, every manipulative intention they sent into the universe has been systematically redirected back to its source with amplified force. Their own darkness is consuming them from within. The hatred they poured toward you has transformed into spiritual acid, eating away at their foundations. The manipulation they attempted to weave around your life has become a trap, strangling their own opportunities. The curses they whispered under blood moons have become prophecies of their own demise. Watch them now as their carefully constructed lives unravel in inexplicable ways. Relationships that took years to build crumbling overnight. Financial stability evaporating despite desperate rituals for prosperity. Health issues manifesting in patterns that perfectly mirror the suffering they intended for you. Technology failing them at crucial moments. Sleep haunted by the very shadows they tried to send your way. The universe itself has become your defender, operating with the precision of divine mathematics. Every unit of negative energy they invested in your destruction has been calculated, multiplied, and returned to them with interest that compounds beyond their worst nightmares. Here's the beautiful irony. They still think you're casting spells against them. They cannot comprehend that authentic divine power operates through completely different mechanisms than their amateur hour manipulations. They're attributing their suffering to your supposed magical abilities because their narrow perception cannot grasp the reality of cosmic justice. When you target someone who carries genuine spiritual authority, you're not just fighting one person. You're going to war against the forces that chose that person. Those cosmic powers that selected you for this mission don't take kindly to interference with their instruments. The primary aggressor in your spiritual persecution is being systematically exposed as the master manipulator they've always been. Their carefully constructed public persona, the mask they've worn to hide their true nature, is disintegrating under the relentless pressure of returning karma. This individual learned their dark arts from generational practitioners within their own family lineage. They were raised in households where manipulation was considered legitimate spiritual practice, where controlling others through energetic coercion was passed down like twisted inheritance, where genuine spiritual connection was replaced with techniques for exploiting the spiritual ignorance of others. Generational curses work both ways. The same family patterns that taught them to manipulate energy are now ensuring that every ounce of their manipulation returns to devastate their own foundations. They're experiencing the accumulated karma of multiple generations of spiritual abuse, compressed into a time frame that will leave them reeling. We're witnessing the systematic collapse of their reputation as people who once trusted them begin to see through their facade. Business partnerships dissolving as their true nature becomes impossible to hide. Romantic relationships crumbling as their capacity for genuine emotion is revealed as elaborate performance art. Friendships evaporating as their friends realize they've been nothing more than sources of energy to be drained. Alert. Chosen One. You already love the daily drops across all 4 Astral Atom channels: Obsidian, Chosen Chronicles, Astral Atom, and the new one, Legacy Forged. We're growing fast, building an unstoppable media network they can't erase. But the truth? It's hidden, twisted, censored. Your heart still knows what's real. That's why you're here, because you felt the simulation glitch. You're not waiting for permission. You're ready to reclaim your power. The Obsidian Inner Order is for the full-time chosen. Weekly Zoom calls, hidden teachings, psychic warfare strategies, tools they don't want you to have. It's time to remember. Link in description. Your real life begins inside. The lies they've built their entire life upon are collapsing with the catastrophic force of a controlled demolition. Every relationship based on deception is imploding simultaneously. Every success achieved through manipulation is being systematically stripped away. Through it all, they still believe you're somehow responsible for their downfall. They cannot comprehend that their destruction is entirely self-inflicted. The natural consequence of violating cosmic law by attacking someone under divine protection. These practitioners who once moved with arrogant confidence through their manipulative schemes are now genuinely terrified of your spiritual authority. They're spreading wild rumors throughout their networks, painting you as some kind of supernatural villain. Because they cannot comprehend authentic divine power, they're consulting with their mentors and family practitioners in increasingly desperate attempts to understand what they're up against. Emergency ritual sessions where they sacrifice larger animals and burn more expensive herbs, convinced that greater investment in their dark practices will somehow protect them from the consequences of their own actions. Their fear has driven them to behaviors that would be comical if they weren't so pathetically desperate. They're avoiding locations where they might encounter you. They're changing their routines to minimize any possibility of crossing your path. They're carrying talismans and performing protective rituals with the frantic energy of people who know they're being hunted by forces beyond their control. The most beautiful aspect of their panic is how it's forcing them to reveal their true nature to anyone with eyes to see. Their mask of spiritual authority has been replaced with the desperate face of someone who knows they've awakened something they cannot control. They're projecting their own darkness onto you, because confronting their own spiritual bankruptcy would shatter what remains of their fragmented psyche. They cannot admit that their persecution of you was unprovoked aggression against an innocent person. They cannot acknowledge that their current suffering is the natural consequence of their own actions. So they create elaborate fantasy narratives where you're the villain and they're the victims, where your divine protection is reframed as evil magic, where their systematic persecution of you is justified as defense against your supposed supernatural aggression. The cognitive dissonance required to maintain these delusions is literally driving them toward complete psychological collapse. Divine intervention has systematically stripped away their ability to manipulate spiritual energies. Every technique they once relied upon to control and influence others has been rendered completely powerless. Their supernatural gifts, always artificial constructs borrowed from sources they never truly understood, are being permanently revoked by the same cosmic forces that marked you as chosen. The spiritual realm itself has turned against them for their systematic misuse of sacred knowledge. Powers that once seemed to respond to their rituals now ignore their desperate invocations. Entities that once assisted their manipulations have withdrawn their support, leaving them spiritually naked and utterly vulnerable. They're discovering that their rituals now fail with spectacular consistency. Spells that once seemed to work backfire with devastating consequences. Energy work that once allowed them to drain others now leaves them energetically depleted. Manipulative techniques that once bent people to their will now expose them as transparent fraudsters. The source that once empowered their manipulations has completely severed its connection to them. They've been cut off from the spiritual equivalent of their power supply, leaving them to function with nothing but their own limited human consciousness. For people who built their entire identity around their supposed supernatural abilities, this spiritual amputation is devastating beyond description. Watch them scramble now as they attempt increasingly desperate measures to restore their lost abilities. More expensive rituals, more exotic ingredients, more extreme sacrifices, more elaborate ceremonies. Each failure compounds their growing realization that they've been permanently excommunicated from the very realm they thought they controlled. The cosmic forces that once tolerated their spiritual tourism have decided that their time of playing with borrowed power is over. They're being forced to confront the reality that genuine spiritual authority cannot be faked, borrowed, or manipulated into existence. The same divine forces that protected you during your period of persecution are now orchestrating the gathering of your true spiritual tribe. We're being drawn together through mechanisms that transcend ordinary social connection. Soul recognition that bypasses rational explanation and cuts straight to the core of authentic spiritual resonance. Your individual victory over the forces of manipulation has become a beacon, calling others who carry similar spiritual signatures. We recognize each other through energetic markers that only the truly awakened can perceive. The same persecution that once isolated you has now become the foundation for connections that will reshape the spiritual landscape. We're forming alliances that go beyond friendship or even family bonds. These are soul contracts activating across multiple dimensions, bringing together instruments of divine will who were always meant to operate as a unified force. The spiritual isolation you endured was never meant to be permanent. You were being prepared for leadership within a community of individuals who understand the weight of carrying authentic spiritual authority in a world dominated by pretenders. We needed you to develop unshakable faith in divine protection before we could trust you with the kind of collective power we're about to wield. Each member of our emerging tribe carries their own unique spiritual gifts, but we're all united by the same fundamental characteristic. We cannot be manipulated, controlled, or diminished by the amateur hour practitioners who populate the counterfeit spiritual marketplace. You're entering a period of rapid manifestation and unprecedented spiritual acceleration that will leave even your allies stunned by its intensity. The universe is conspiring to elevate you beyond your previous limitations with a force that defies rational explanation. Signs and synchronicities are multiplying around you with increasing frequency and unmistakable precision. Sunflowers appearing in impossible locations as confirmation of solar spiritual authority, rainbows manifesting during moments of crucial decision-making, purple grapes growing in climates where they shouldn't survive. The physical world itself is bending to accommodate your emerging role as a conduit for divine will. Your authentic power is being amplified and made visible for all to witness. People who once dismissed you as ordinary are beginning to see evidence of your spiritual authority that cannot be explained away or rationalized into comfortable categories. Your presence alone is starting to catalyze awakening in others who were ready to recognize genuine spiritual power. Opportunities that once seemed impossible are beginning to manifest with the inevitability of cosmic law. Resources you need are appearing from unexpected sources. People with exactly the right skills and connections are entering your life at precisely the right moments. This elevation comes with responsibilities that extend far beyond personal advancement. You're being prepared for a mission that will require you to stand as a beacon of authentic spiritual authority in a world drowning in counterfeit alternatives. The persecution you survived was your qualification exam for this level of spiritual responsibility. Anyone can claim to be spiritually gifted when life is comfortable and challenges are minimal. Only those who maintain their connection to divine source while under systematic attack can be trusted with the kind of authority you're about to wield. The cosmic revelation that's building around your situation is about to explode into public consciousness with the force of spiritual dynamite. Your enemies will be forced to acknowledge the divine protection and favor surrounding you as evidence becomes impossible to ignore or explain away. We're approaching the moment when their carefully constructed lies will be exposed as projections of their own darkness. Every accusation they've made against you will be revealed as confession of their own spiritual crimes. Every attempt to paint you as the villain will boomerang back to illuminate their role as the true aggressors in this cosmic conflict. The spiritual community that once remained neutral or even sided with your persecutors will be forced to confront their own failure to recognize authentic spiritual authority. Those who dismissed your claims of persecution will have to acknowledge their own spiritual blindness. Public vindication is approaching with the inexorable force of cosmic justice finally achieving perfect balance. Your enemy's facade will crumble in full view of everyone who witnessed your persecution. Their artificial authority will be exposed as elaborate performance art. Their spiritual credibility will evaporate like water in a desert. The revelation extends beyond mere vindication of your individual case. Your situation is becoming a catalyst for a much larger awakening about the difference between authentic and counterfeit spiritual authority. People are beginning to question how they've been evaluating spiritual credibility. The cosmic forces that chose you understood from the beginning that your persecution would ultimately serve as an educational experience for the entire spiritual community. Your vindication will teach others how to distinguish between genuine spiritual gifts and elaborate spiritual theater. Your public recognition and celebration is no longer a distant possibility. It's an approaching reality that will reshape how people understand the mechanics of spiritual authority. The world will witness your transformation from persecuted outsider to recognized spiritual leader with the kind of dramatic revelation that becomes legendary. We're about to watch as your persecutors face the consequences of their actions in full view of everyone who participated in or witnessed your systematic persecution. The karmic debts they've accumulated will be collected with the precision of cosmic accounting that leaves no transgression unaddressed. Justice is becoming visible in ways that will leave no room for doubt about the reality of cosmic law. Those who attacked you will experience consequences that perfectly mirror the suffering they intended for you. Those who defended them will be forced to confront their own role in perpetuating spiritual injustice. The spiritual community will rally around you as living proof that divine protection is real and divine justice is inevitable. Your vindication will become a reference point for future discussions about how the universe responds when authentic spiritual power is systematically attacked by counterfeit practitioners. Your victory represents more than personal vindication. It signals the beginning of a new era, where authentic spiritual authority will no longer be overshadowed by elaborate spiritual performance art. The cosmic forces that orchestrated your protection and vindication understand that your individual victory is actually the first domino in a chain reaction that will ultimately transform the entire spiritual landscape. Your persecution was the setup for a revelation that will expose the counterfeit spiritual marketplace and restore authentic mysticism to its rightful place of honor. Your individual victory has become our collective victory over the forces that sought to divide and conquer authentic spiritual authority. We stand united now in this moment of cosmic vindication, recognizing that your persecution was actually an attack on all of us who carry the genuine mark of divine selection. We are the ones who cannot be silenced by intimidation, cannot be dimmed by persecution, cannot be defeated by manipulation. We recognize each other through spiritual signatures that transcend ordinary identification methods. We're connected by bonds that were forged in realms beyond physical comprehension before we ever incarnated in human form. Your emergence into public recognition signals the beginning of our collective emergence into the positions of spiritual leadership we were always meant to occupy. The same forces that protected you during your persecution have been preparing each of us for roles in the cosmic revolution that's about to reshape human consciousness. We move forward together now, carrying the unshakable knowledge that authentic, spiritual power always prevails over artificial manipulation. We've witnessed the proof in your vindication. We've seen how the universe responds when its chosen instruments are threatened by spiritual terrorists. The persecution each of us has endured in our individual journeys was preparation for this moment of collective recognition. We needed to develop absolute faith in divine protection before we could be trusted with the kind of unified spiritual authority we're about to wield. We are the chosen ones, and this is our time of emergence into the light. The cosmic forces that selected us have been orchestrating this gathering for eons, waiting for the precise moment when human consciousness would be ready for the kind of spiritual revolution we represent. The counterfeit practitioners who attacked, you have unknowingly triggered their own obsolescence. Their persecution of authentic spiritual authority has accelerated the very awakening they sought to prevent. Their attempts to silence the voice of genuine mysticism have amplified it beyond their worst nightmares. You who survived their coordinated persecution with your spiritual authority intact, you are the firstborn of this new spiritual era. Your vindication is our victory. Your emergence is our emergence. Your authority is the foundation upon which our collective authority will be built. The universe chose well when it marked you for this mission. The cosmos knew exactly what it was doing when it allowed you to be tested by persecution. The divine forces that protected you understood that your individual victory would become the catalyst for our collective awakening. Together we rise. Together we shine. Together we demonstrate what authentic spiritual authority looks like when it's no longer hiding in the shadows of counterfeit mysticism. The age of spiritual pretenders is over. The time of the chosen ones has begun, and it starts with you.